Thank you all for choosing to wake up this morning and come here. It's really good to be with you here. So, what do you got? Healing, compassion, heroic, enhancement of resilience, lots of really big words. I'd like to try and give you a little bit of context as to why this happened, this kind of work, at least from my perspective. My own background, I came from Israel. You've probably been noticing it on the news, rockets flying from side to side, complicated place, no doubt. So I've had a lot of interesting experience growing up in Israel. Later on, I ended up coming to America, to San Francisco, and I figured I would get my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I will be a therapist person. I will sit in a nice room with people, and I'll ask them how that makes them feel, and they would, hopefully get better because of it. And I thought it was going to be a really mellow thing to do. One thing that was interesting when I got to America and I started graduate studies, I became really, really interested in the most intense realities you can imagine about the human experience. I became interested in the cycle of violence, trauma, and aggression. I became really curious about why violent people are the way that they are. And I wasn't fully understanding that. I wanted to. And I guess I wanted to help also. And in my practicums, in my training to do psychotherapy with people, I found myself working with veterans. They came back from war and had done some terrible things. I found myself working with people involved with gangs that have done some terrible things to fellow human beings. And in that process, I ended up learning a bunch of things that now we're hoping, maybe we can help other people with what we've been learning. One thing I've learned about the folks that I've helped, people that were for sure perpetrators, hurt others, these people were wounded themselves, and you've heard that before. People that hurt others oftentimes have been hurt themselves. Another thing that's interesting when you work with really angry, really tough people, and you try to kind of find a way to help them arrive at this place of healing, helping them recognize that they have goodness inside of them. Sounds kind of tacky in a sense. It's also proved to be reality, helping them see goodness inside of them, helping them see goodness in other people around them. That ended up being one of the most powerful agents of healing for these people. Another fascinating piece is that a lot of people I work with is, again, really rough backgrounds, did some rough stuff. I found them doing all these nice, compassionate, altruistic things for other people. And I would see how this is also helping them. So folks that you would expect to just be angry and violent are actually doing a lot of nice things for each other, for their friends, for people out in the community. That brought up a lot of questions, a lot of intuitive questions. And that's kind of how it goes with this academic work. You just kind of have a bunch of questions to go on, and then you try to figure out, well, why is this so? Why is this happening? So let me share some of these sets of questions with you. So why would suffering transform into compassion, right? We have this really rough experience, and we choose to become good and nice because of it. How does that even add up? How does it happen? How does it transform into compassion? What would our world look like if pain turned into this deep desire to help other people? My assumption is our world would be a little bit better if that was to happen more often. And I guess that's one of our goals, one of our hopes. Another set of questions, why would someone shift from doing bad things to being a heroic person? Why does a human transform from being violent to being compassionate, being altruistic? The big question, right? What would it take for us to abandon hatred and choose love instead? These are really big questions, and in the pursuit of trying to understand some of these answers, we embarked on the following project. The project is called Creating a Partner. Try to understand why people would shift from violence to peace. And it's also a great opportunity to introduce my collaborators. One of them, Phil Zimbardo, is over in San Francisco. He sends his regards. The other one, the leader of our work, is Dr. Ronnie Berger, sitting right over there sporting the B-style sweatshirt. That's how he does. And this work has been really interesting. So Ronnie's work over in Israel, for instance, he identified former combatants, Israelis and Palestinians, for both sides. And if you've been watching the news, it seemed like the two sides are not necessarily in love with each other, right? However, Ronnie has identified these combatants, people that have done rough stuff on both sides, people that have shifted and become peacemakers, become people that are seeking reconciliation with each other, trying to basically create some kind of resolution to this conflict. And then out in California, what I've done is lead a team of students to interview former gangsters, former gang members that have gotten into a lot of trouble in their own lives, have hurt other people, and are now active as peacemakers themselves. And the process was in-depth interviews, 3 or 4 hours with each person, these narrative interviews where we identify and try to learn about the trajectory of their lives from early childhood all the way till now. Why did they go into that kind of lifestyle? What made them choose peace? What made them become excited about helping others? This quote, to me, encapsulates a lot. Back then, everybody was a potential enemy. Today, everybody can be a potential friend. The person who said that was a lady that I met down in LA. She was a former Crips member. She had committed murder. In prison, she started becoming, in essence, a healer, a helper to her fellow sisters in prison. She came out of prison after serving 15 years for murder, and now she works in domestic violence, and basically she helps people in her community avoid the kind of lifestyle that she has been, I think, trapped in a sense, and I'll say some more about that in a couple of minutes. What are our goals? What are we trying to do here? We want to learn from these people. We want to learn from their wisdom so we can potentially extrapolate some key ideas, key perspectives that we can then teach to children that are in the inner cities, children that are in war zones, so that potentially these children can avoid the kind of hardship these people had, so these children can avoid the cycle of violence. We're going to do it with a program called Erase Stress Pro-Social. Maybe later on we can chat about that some more. It's a program that Ronnie has developed. And the idea is helping children reduce their stress on the one hand, and on the other hand, increase compassion, increase pro-sociality, increase connection with others in a way that's positive. Another reason is we want to share about these ideas in different ways. We want to have these messages of compassion in wounded communities. Even though you have it rough, you can still grow from that and become a person that cares about others, that does good for society. We want to echo that in more ways so that people ideally would become inspired and would be interested in engaging in what we're referring to as pro-social activities, goodness, kindness, caring about more things beyond just ourselves, and I'll say in a moment why that might be helpful. So we also have a documentary film that's following this project, and basically following the work we've done over in Israel and also in the US. So I'm going to show you a very brief trailer that might make you a little bit dizzy because there's a lot there. And it's an opportunity to share a little bit about the experiences we've had in the past couple of years doing this work. So let's see what it looks like.
The experiment requires that we continue.
But he might be dead in there.
When I go to checkpoint, I can kill all the soldiers.
When I became a drug dealer, I was the leader of my drug dealing crew. When I became a dope fiend, I was the best dope fiend.
Prisoner 819 did a bad thing.
How did you go from being really bad to now being heroic?
You ain't never in your life gonna change if you don't do something you ain't never did before. You saved somebody in the subway. God bless you, brother.
God can. What's the hell?
I like beautiful big butt women.
This Jesus Christ to save you.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
All the military leaders, they have terrible sexual life.
Sex.
When they start shooting tear gas, look up.
Americans, or really any population of sadistic and psychopaths.
Just all those people have this thing in their brain that makes them do it.
It seems so obvious to say, of course we understand what it means to be a hero. My answer is, you think you do, but you don't. The issue was, what happens when you put good people in an evil place? Does the goodness of the people dominate and transform the evil place? Or does the power of the evil situation transform and dominate the people? We picked 24, 24 who were the most normal and most healthy, and then we randomly assigned half of them to the role of playing a prisoner and half to be the guard. The study was supposed to go for 2 weeks, but we had to end it in 6 days because it was out of control. That The guards were doing each day ever more cruel, sadistic, brutal things. At the end of 5 days, 5 students, all chosen because they're no longer healthy, were having emotional breakdowns in a simulated prison, in a mock prison. What happens when you put good people in an evil place?
15 שנים אני מטפל באנשים שנחשפו לחוויות טראומטיות גם בצד הישראלי וגם בצד הפלסטיני. ורוב האנשים שאני רואה הופכים לקיצוניים יותר, שונאים את האחר ולא מקבלים אותו.
ערבי טוב, רק כשהוא מת.
מיעוט אבל עדיין נמצא בכיוון של פיוס. הניסויים של מילגרם וזימברדו התמקדו ברוב שנהג בצורה לא הומנית. מה שמעניין אותי זה המיעוט. אלה שפעלו בצורה הומנית, מהם ניתן ללמוד הרבה.
How are you? Welcome to America. That's nice. Good to see you.
Good place.
Ronnie Berger and I have a similar vision, is that research is step 1, so social action step 2 is how do we create programs that can change the way people think and act in the classroom and in the community, based on not our ideas, but we can say, here's the evidence, and therefore we're telling you, here's what to do, here's how to do it, and we have a reasonable probability that it will change your life in a better way. It's never been done. It's a simple idea, but it's never been done. That's the amazing thing is.
Well, you know, it's an opportunity to share just a small capsule of what we've been up to in the last 2 years, really. So going around in the most rough places and making contact with good people, people that grew compassion, grew love for themselves and from others from a place where you wouldn't assume it would exist. And I think in a sense that's part of what we try to do. We try to find compassion, we try to find love, we try to find caring for other people in places that you're not likely to find it as much. And I think that there are reasons to be optimistic. There are also reasons to continue to do this kind of work. So, like I said before, when we try to think about this academic gig, right, we want to increase our knowledge, increase our understanding. Oftentimes, asking questions is the way to begin, and then we come up with some answers. We come up with some, potentially, ideally, some kind of solutions. So this set of questions, for me, has been maybe the most personal one. When I started graduate school, I was obsessed with this first question. Why would a child, the most innocent being we can imagine, why would a child be so angry, so violent, so hateful that they would be so motivated to hurt other people? Why would that even happen? How could that be logical? Where did they come up with that kind of idea? Who taught them that? And maybe an even more important question here at the bottom is, what is the future of our society? What is the future of this world if we allow our children to grow into that kind of a violent mindset? What would things look like if we just kind of allow for that to happen? That's been bugging me a lot. There's no full, complete answer to that, but I will say that one of the big reasons for why children would aggress is because they ended up being born into a life of violence sometimes. Oftentimes these children that have a desire to hurt other people, they were hurt themselves. One of the most powerful things that I've learned in doing this work is that underneath anger, there's pain. A lot of time we see angry people, we see resentful people, we see people with a desire to hurt others. And maybe one of the things I want to suggest today is an opportunity to cultivate empathy in more ways. When we see someone angry, it's just their way of showing us their pain. It's their way of expressing the needs that they're not finding a way to meet. It's their way of expressing that kind of frustration. We can talk about gangs, we can talk about war. It also happens in the schoolyard. You know that kind of slightly annoying kid that likes to kind of nag the other kids in class and kind of be offensive or insulting at times? Who knows? Maybe they got some pain underneath that's driving that kind of behavior. Oftentimes what we see is children and people getting trapped in this cycle of violence. We're born into violence. That's what we know. That's what we learn. We end up hurting others. These people hurt others, and the cycle perpetuates itself. If you've been looking a little bit in the news in the last week or two, what's happening in Israel, I think that's a big part of it. I think that our task or our hope is to allow for freedom, allow for choice. Can we find a way to interrupt a little bit with this vicious cycle of trauma and aggression and maybe help children initiate a new cycle, a virtuous cycle of positive pro-sociality. What I have, 2 minutes? Sure, about 1. Okay, I'll be real quick. So basically, before I came here, I was going to talk to you guys. I was really excited, and I wanted to give you some kind of gift. It's going to be hard to give it in a minute, but I'll try. Initially, I was thinking I can bring all of you the iPhone 5 in my bag from San Francisco, but I don't think it would have fit in my suitcase. The next best thing I could come up with is try to put on one slide the most important things in life that I'm aware of, and maybe that would be useful as some kind of life advice. So the first thing I want to say is all of us are similar in some ways. Here's the thing about being human. All of us share some attributes. We all want to be free from suffering. We all want to be happy. Every single person in this room has that kind of affinity. We all want these things for ourselves. But the other portion is every single person here also is unique. Every single person sitting in this room has these unique kernels that are special only to them. And I guess one of my goals or hopes today is to encourage you to seek out what these kernels are, what that would look like for you. Identify what that would look like. The next one is so easy to be cynical about, right? The core is goodness. Come on. I think if I was hearing it when I was a teenager, just like you, I would shrug. It takes a little time maybe sometimes to agree with that. I think when we work with a lot of people that are suffering, to identify that we have that goodness inside of us and grow that further, I think it ends up going a long way. So I guess that's my invitation, to recognize these things that are alive in you, connect in them, and engage with them more. Identify your core values, the thing that you uphold is most important to you. Each person has different values in life. And I think that's the beauty of being human. So if you find your unique formula, the things that are most important for you, I think that would be a really meaningful and useful thing in life. The other thing is, there's special things about us, there's goodness about us, and the beauty is that when we come in contact with other people, we honor who they are, and we find the goodness in them, and we treat them the same way that we hope to be treated. These are all very, very fundamental things, and I think that's the beauty about these simple messages. They're easy to say, they're hard to implement, and in a sense, I'd like to invite you to kind of try it out, check it out, see what happens. It takes a minute, by the way, to, grasp these ideas and put them into practice, but that's part of the invitation I want to extend. And the last one is kind of like a promise, if you will, and the promise is that if you choose to treat yourselves, if you treat yourself with patience and kindness, to really identify the things that are important for you, and you choose to treat others with kindness, what I'm going to suggest is your life will go stronger and stronger, and probably life will have a slightly different taste. There's no way for me to prove it by standing up here and waving at you. The only way to really experience it is to try it out, and that's really the invitation I want to extend to you guys. In coming here, try it out. Tomorrow, do a few things differently. See what happens. See what shows up for you. So that is the very, very brief, nutshell kind of presentation that I wanted to share with you today. And for me to be here is an honor, and I very much appreciate this opportunity. So thank you very much.